Hello and welcome to InfoSpark. Today we're looking at the new movie starring Lady Gaga and Adam Driver called House of Gucci. The movie, which is directed by Ridley Scott, is promised to release in the latter part of 2021 and is based on the book The House of Gucci by Sarah Gay Forden. It tells the story of how Patrizia Reggiani, the ex-wife of Maurizio Gucci, plotted to kill her husband. We as mere mortals think of Gucci name as all Florence, fashion and flounce, whereas the House of Gucci grips us and draws us in to the ugly truth behind the most fabulous family in fashion, who have been around for generations. Today we'll be answering the question of, what is the real story of House of Gucci? Stick around to the bonus facts to find out what item Gucci displayed on the week of the conviction. The movie, which is directed by famed director Ridley Scott, started with some controversy, with the Gucci family voicing their distress at the release of the movie, as it may be scandalous and damaging to the family name. Maurizio Gucci's cousin is said to have told the press, "I will write a book about the Guccis, to say who they really are, and I will give Scott a copy, in the hopes that his movie will never be released." It is clear from the start that the movie has had a controversial start, and it's not something that the Gucci family would like to come out and shed more light upon the murder of Maurizio Gucci. Maurizio Gucci was a member of the famous Gucci family who came from Florence, the birthplace of the luxurious, elegant and iconic fashion firm that bears the Gucci name. In Italy, the Gucci name had always been synonymous with style and elegance. Italy had provided the world with brilliant designers such as Giorgio Armani and Gianni Versace, but the Gucci name went back for generations before those famed designers had ever been born. Guccio Gucci, Maurizio's grandfather, started the empire from extremely humble beginnings. He worked for his parents' straw hat business in Florence, but he fled from his home to London when his father was facing bankruptcy. He allegedly worked at the Savoy Hotel as a dishwasher and bellboy, but that's a whole story in itself that may be touched upon in the movie. Maurizio Gucci was the very last member of the Gucci family to run the firm, before selling it to his financial partners, who in turn had a plan to take the Gucci brand public. By spring of 1994, Maurizio was no longer involved in any aspect of his family business. He opened his own offices on Via Palestro, where he would eventually meet his death. On Monday the 27th of March, 1995, Maurizio Gucci reached the top step of his office building. Gucci had not noticed that a man had stepped in after him. As Giuseppe Onorato, the doorman of the building, watched in horror, the stranger opened his coat with one hand and with the other pulled out a gun. He fired 3 times in rapid succession. His attacker fired one final and fatal shot into Maurizio's right temple. The gunman spun round and caught sight of Onorato, firing 2 bullets at him before fleeing. Luckily for Onorato, the bullets hit him in the arm and were not fatal. When the police arrived, they ascertained that it must be the work of a professional hitman, given that the target was Maurizio Gucci. However, they were perplexed by the sloppy nature of too many shots being fired, and that there were witnesses, which later brought them to the conclusion that it was not actually the work of a professional hitman. On the 23rd of November 1970, Maurizio Gucci laid eyes on Patrizia Reggiani at a party. Rudolfo Gucci, Maurizio's father, did not like Patrizia, as he had always been told that she was a social climber who had nothing else on her mind apart from money. Rudolfo told Maurizio that she was not the girl for him, but Maurizio replied they would have Patrizia, whether his father liked it or not. Maurizio was 35 when his father passed away, and up until the end, their relationship was stiff, formal and dominating. Even as an adult, Maurizio always jumped to his feet whenever his father entered the room. The only thing that Maurizio had ever done in his life that went against the grain of what his father had said was to marry Patrizia. Incidentally, Patrizia's father, who organized the wedding, did not invite one single member of Maurizio's family. Rudolfo and Patrizia never grew close, but they made peace with each other. As his father could see that Maurizio loved her, she made him happy and she brought up Alessandra and Allegra, their daughters, in a loving home. After his father's death, Maurizio was granted 50% of the Gucci empire in his will. He was Gucci's largest single shareholder. In December of 1985, Maurizio left an acrimonious business meeting with Aldo to spend the Christmas holidays with Patrizia and his daughters. Relations with Patrizia had become strained. She was hoping to spend the holidays together so they would help heal the rift. On Christmas Eve, Patrizia went to a party and Maurizio went to bed. The next day, he said that he was going to leave her, and a fight ensued, where allegedly he had grabbed her around the neck and lifted her from the ground. In June 1989, Maurizio met with Dawn Mello, who was the president of Bergdorf Goodman, as he wanted her to help him bring around the Gucci brand and bring it back to life. As a woman in a man's world, she had learned to be tough, but she still had style and elegance. She agreed to be part of the Gucci fashion house. Eventually Mello would employ Tom Ford, and he became vital to the future of Gucci. He resuscitated Gucci's fame and fortune.
But anyway, it's better, much better to have money than not to have. It's better to cry in Rolls Royce than to be happy on a bicycle.
On the morning of Maurizio's funeral, Patrizia played the perfect Black Widow. She wore a black veil over dark black sunglasses, a black suit, and finished off with black leather gloves. When she spoke to the waiting paparazzi, she said, "On a human level, I am sorry. On a personal level, I can't say the same thing." Patrizia and her two daughters moved into a magnificent apartment that belonged to Maurizio. He lived there with his girlfriend of 4 years, Paola Franchi, to whom he was reportedly going to marry. Patrizia kicked out Paola. 3 years after the murder, one evening there was a knock at the door, and it was the police. They came to arrest Patrizia and charge her with the murder of Maurizio. That same morning, 4 other people were arrested around Italy, and also charged with Gucci's murder. Those also arrested were Patrizia's best friend Pina, a hotel porter named Ivano, a mechanic named Benedito, and Orazio, a bankrupt manager who was already imprisoned on unrelated drug charges. Nini, a police officer who had followed the case with interest, received a phone call from an unknown person. They told him that they knew who'd killed Maurizio Gucci. The caller would not come to the police station, and he agreed only to meet Nini elsewhere. His name was Carpanesi. He told Nini the whole story as the plot to murder Gucci, and it was all so full of details that only an insider could have known. Nini was 100% sure that Carpanesi was telling the truth. He said that Patrizia regularly had ordered the murder of her husband. She had paid 6 million lira for it to happen. Her best friend Pina acted as a go-between for Patrizia and the hitman. Carpanesi knew all of the details because his friend, Ivano, the hotel porter, confessed to him that he'd become embroiled in something very serious, and after having it on his conscience, Carpanesi decided to report him. Pina had spoken to Ivano, who was an old friend of hers. He had then involved Orazio. He was just a 56-year-old man who ran a pizzeria. Ivano knew that Orazio had a gambling debt and needed the money. Orazio found the killer and drove the getaway car. The getaway car happened to be his son's green Renault Clio. Orazio had stolen a car for the job, but it had disappeared. The killer who pulled the trigger was Benedito, who was a mechanic that lived behind Orazio's restaurant. Benedito had sourced a 7.5 caliber Beretta revolver, which he'd used to kill Maurizio Gucci. He constructed a silencer from a metal cylinder lined with felt. Just before 9:30 a.m. on the 2nd of June 1998, 5 female prison guards escorted Patrizia into a Milan courthouse. Pina and Ivano, metaphorically speaking, threw Patrizia under the bus. They talked about the amount of money that they had received from Patrizia in funding for the murder of Maurizio. Investigators raided Patrizia's cell and found statements from her Monte Carlo bank, an account that was codenamed Lotus B, that showed withdrawals corresponding to the sums that Pina and Ivano were said to have received. When Pina was called to the stand, she said that Patrizia had organized Maurizio's murder. She said, "We were like sisters. She told me everything." After nearly 7 hours of deliberation, it is 5:10 p.m. Patrizia and all 4 of her accomplices were found guilty of the murder of Maurizio Gucci. Patrizia and Maurizio both got 29 years, Ivano 26, and Pina 25. Benedetto, the hitman who pulled the trigger, received a life sentence. At 5:20 p.m, the paparazzi swarmed to get photos of Patrizia, who was ushered out between the rows of her lawyers. And now for some bonus facts. The week that Patrizia was convicted, every Gucci store worldwide displayed a gleaming pair of silver handcuffs in their windows. A spokesperson for Gucci said that the timing of the display was merely a coincidence. Jackie Onassis, who was later Jackie Kennedy, carried the very famous Gucci Jackie bag in 1979. This version in 1999, when relaunched, sold a record 6,000 pieces. Thank you for watching our video. We hope that you enjoyed this one. If you did, please hit the like and subscribe button. Have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video.